Tunde Balogun, founder Small Small. Victor Olatunde, CEO of SalesPlat. Dele Oladunjoye, managing partner, Great Chapel Legal. I believe he has a representative here. And Tochi Adesoya, founder of Live Easy. All right. So it's a 5-man panel today. Also gives me great pleasure to invite Mr. Laide Agbola, CEO of Purple. Thank you everyone for making it to this session. We have 45 minutes to do justice to an area that I think is of great interest to a lot of founders. We're coming in after lunch, so want to implore everyone to please get your energy levels up. If you need to stand, walk around a bit, please do so. But this promises to be a very engaging and exciting discussion. So once again, my name is Oare Hiamwa Ochui. I'm the founder of Labor Hack. We provide skilled labor solutions for the construction industry across Africa. And I think before we begin, it will be good to just do a quick go around the room to have each of our panelists introduce themselves, give a one-liner about what their company does. So yeah, please, if we can start with you, Mr. Agbola.
Hi, my name is actually Okwe, representing Mr. Agbola. So I work at Purple. Purple is a tech-enabled real estate firm. So what we do is, thank you very much. So what we do is obviously we build assets, and we're also sort of trying to tear down barriers to those assets and other assets using technology. So technology is a big part of what our strategy for the next few years, and we are just trying to solve those problems of access to access to real estate, access to homes to live in, and access to investment in real estate. So that's Purple. Thank you.
My name is Tunde Balogun. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Small Small Technology. And Small Small, what we do is provide access to housing, basically. We started with Rent Small Small, which is allowing people to pay their rent flexibly, monthly primarily. And then we have Buy Small Small as well, which is, again, allowing people to own homes, providing access to home ownership, lowering the barrier for people so you can buy small, providing financing also to help people own homes. So, yeah.
All right, Victor Olatunde is my name. I'm the founder and CEO at SalesPlat. Basically, we're that platform that enables sales from the point of wherever low level the company might be to the point of exponential growth. And we do that by providing talents and tools for organizations. In other words, you're looking for your head of growth, head of sales, you're looking for even the field agents on the field. We provide that, and that also gives us some access into product teams and some tech talent as well. So if you're looking for growth, basically, we are that platform to go to. Thanks.
Okay, my name is Tochi Adesoya. I'm the founder of Live Easy. Live Easy is simplifying payments across the low and average income homes and across all payment forms, collections, and also payments by the tenants, right? And we're trying to use the tenants community to power as many businesses as possible. So we could call ourselves a home rental enabler for businesses.
Awesome.
Hello. Hello, everyone. My name is Ololade Agbola. I am a lawyer with Great Chapel Legal. Essentially, we provide, among other things, commercial advisory services. So we advise, for instance, startups, including PropTech, and some people who are even in this very room right now. Again, we provide advisory services of all nature, but including PropTech startups, essentially.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So yeah, this is one of those topics that you cannot have during during a summit like this, right? When, as a founder, you know that two of the most common challenges you have is thinking about how you can build and scale your solution. And you can't do that without the right partnerships. You can't do that without the right technology. But before we go into the meat of the discussions, right, I think it would be nice to add a bit of color to kind of like your journey so far, especially I'll just speak to the founders in the room for this question. Your journey so far, particularly the challenges you faced navigating the business environment in Nigeria, also particularly in a nascent sector like the prop tech industry, right? What are some of the common challenges that you face or are facing, and how are you navigating these? So maybe we'll just start with you, Tunde. Yeah, that okay?
So yeah, when it comes to challenges, I think I mean, we are in a very tough space. I mean, everyone knows that real estate is not easy, and just the introduction of technology is supposed to really bring about the change for, you know, one of the oldest industry in the world. So, and when something is old, it's usually very hard for people to switch to a new way. So I mean, you are even confronted with that challenge of how do I get people to switch from the old to new. Sometimes, I mean, there were discussions that we had here earlier today where one of the panelists was saying like they see you as competitor, the traditional guys sometimes, right? But in our own space, I mean, when we launched Small, we started with Rent Small, right? So one of the challenges we had was how to convince landlords to collect their rent monthly. But even before that, I mean, we started engaging the traditional real estate guys. I remember going, you know, from one, you know, office or company to the other, just to try to you know, convince them that yes, the yearly thing has worked for this long, but we're in a different time where you know, if we're really going to, I believe that housing is a basic human need, and if we look at how we can move people forward through housing, where everybody is better off, the economy is better off, just because people can live flexibly, they can pay their rent monthly, they can manage their finances better, they can do other things with their money without having to, you know, pay rent upfront. Then there's so much impact we could have with that, right? But again, we couldn't move the needle until we started just kind of powering some of the solution ourselves to, you know, and that's one of the advice I'll give anyone, that if you're starting anything, if you're trying to knock at certain doors and nobody's really opening the door for you, don't stay too long there, you know, trying to knock the door. Find other ways to break the barriers. Look within, that are there other things that I could do just to kind of, and there's a bit of storytelling also which speaks to success. So there are challenges of, we're not getting you know, landlords to onboard, for us to onboard landlords initially. But the first property we rented out on Rent Small was the spare room in my 2-bedroom house. You know, I just put it on Rent Small, and then with that story of like, we have this one traction, I was able to take it to a landlord that we've been talking to for a while, and I said, we have people using our platform now. I think you should consider it. And I was like, I love what you guys do. You know, I have a 13-unit property. I'll put 2 there. Let's see what you guys can do with it. And from that we ended up taking the entire 13 units. From that entire 13 units, when we were launching Buy Small last year, that property became the first property that we used to launch Buy Small, and we sold out all the 13 units. And Buy Small has gone from like 13 units to over hundreds of properties that we've sold, that people they bought in bits, right? Over billions of transactions as a result of that, right? So the challenges will be there. Is just how can we confront it? How can we, you know, scale it, and eventually, you know, we'll be better off. Yeah.
All right. Thanks. It's an amazing question you asked, and we can't remove the fact that there are challenges in building in Nigeria or Africa generally. I had my background in fintech. I had in food manufacturing, FMCG, and all that before I decided to build solution for sales. And the reason was because we saw that every new person today wants to build a product. Every single person wants to launch a tech solution. But almost everybody is fighting for the little number of people on Facebook, on Instagram, and Twitter. So just a few millions of people. So we are not having the spread of innovation to the background or to the grassroots or even beyond just the social media. So I had the challenge of building a fintech from 0 to 170,000 users, but I decided to build it without a single digital spend on ad. But building it brought a lot of lessons and knowledge and all that. But trying to now scale that and what we did to other companies became a problem because we eventually saw that even though we thought people did not have the skill set and all that to really help companies sell, the problem was not even that is not available. We don't even have a way to even recruit the right people to even do the job. So recruitment misalignment was a critical thing we saw. And at the end of the day, even when we now started finding ways to match that effectively, we saw that talent was not enough in terms of quality, in terms of abilities and all that. So we ended up having to go beyond just one product to having quite a number of solutions that you have to build. Someone was saying in the morning that when you want to build in Nigeria, you find out that you have to do this one, do this one, do this one, just for you to eventually have another solution. So we literally had to move from trying to match the best talent that's going to grow revenue to eventually having a training arm, more like what an Andela is doing today. We're not doing that for the non-tech and for the revenue growing side of things. So I would just say that, yeah, it was a major challenge at the beginning, but like he said, the critical thing is to look inwards and say, okay, in what other ways can we really do this? If we've done it for fintech and education and health, can we do it and scale it across multiple industries? So we have to find a way to eventually start building some of the biggest talent database in the country, as it were, and we're still doing that over and over. But overall, it's been enticing, it's been interesting. It's really been fun seeing that you are creating a solution for multiple verticals. And I can say, yeah, we're just starting, and there's still much more to, to dig into. Yeah.
Thank you. Very well said. What about you, Tochi?
So, for us, we decided to take the problem by the truth and totally kill it. I came from a technology background where my job was to look at problems that businesses are having and look at the available technology in the market on the shelf and see how to come up with solutions that can bring the company money, right? And the company was used to pay us upfront. We bring the solution to you. And I was telling the company, this is not sustainable. I mean, the best way to grow a business is to have a foot in every business. So why don't we change our strategy and say, we'll give you the solution, right? In turn, you run all your business on our solution, and then we'll scale with you, right? Which gives us a much more longer sustainable view. And I saw that because every single year they are coming to us and say, let's make a strategy, let's make a budget, we need to make 10 billion naira, we need to make, and how long? Because to get markets in Nigeria is very difficult. And I sat down one day and I asked myself a question. Based on the experience I've seen, building solutions, developing customers, what is the one problem? And I discovered that connection is the biggest problem, right? Plus trust. And if we have to make investment work in Nigeria and other businesses grow, we have to solve those two things. We have to solve a business to start and immediately have access to customers, which is what they enjoy in the Western world, and also not just the customers that can pay, right? And secondly, without you knowing anybody, you can be able to give anybody anything, right? And that is what the Social Security does for people out there. And then looking at all the possibilities and how we could achieve that, we thought of where do we start from? And we saw, because one of the major things we discover every time we go to the bank to provide solution for them, and we get to ask them, why don't you give credits to people? There's only one thing that is in the amount. We don't know how to locate them when they default, which is address. So we said, okay, it means real estate holds the secret to economic boom. And that's why we came into PropTech. We've been iterating, we've seen a whole lot of beautiful idea, go and build it. And then we, just like Tunde said, you have to start thinking of ways to still achieve the goal, right, without diverting from the goal, right, and get to the target. And so we started thinking of other ways to achieve this. And then we saw collaboration is the best way. And that means we need to start to market our own supposedly competitors. To say, instead of you building all this alone, why not let's build an aggregated system, right? Which can now be able to provide a much more broader and more transparent opportunities for the market we are trying to reach. And at the same time, we can conquer the market within a shorter period of time. So that's what Liviz is trying to do.
Awesome. Thank you very much for sharing, Tochi. I mean, I think a lot of valid points have been made from Tunde speaking about, you know, just the need to prove your concept, right, in the early stages, to Victor talking more about backward integration and the challenges around that, and you talking about, you know, more like a platform play and collaboration and how you use that to scale. So maybe the next question, and this is open to everyone on the panel. No, founders only. Yeah, so the next question, and this is open to everyone on the panel, right? Just kind of thinking about, you know, some of these strategic challenges that you faced in the journey so far, right? What are areas where you have been able to leverage a partnership, right? A partnership play. And what did that look like for you? And at what point did you get to when did you reach that point, or how did you reach that point where you said, you know what, actually, we can't do everything ourselves, we can't do it alone? Because a common misconception by a lot of founders is, I have the vision, it's me that has to execute. If I'm bringing in competitors or I'm bringing in other people in the space, they could steal my idea, right? They could run with it. So what's that maturity that it takes to get to that point where you say, actually, it's time to collaborate? What was the point that you reached that point? And also, if you can just speak briefly to a brief example, right, as to what that partnership looked like. Sure, Tunde, go for it.
Okay, I mean, in terms of partnerships, one of the things that's really key, and that's, I mean, for us at Purple, is actually one of our watch was to collaborate. Is, for instance, we were working on a project, and you know, we had a pathway of how we wanted to achieve it. But you know, working on our own, we found out that we weren't making much progress because 6 months had passed. We were still like maybe on the first 2 or 3 steps. But by actually working with someone else who was working in the same field, we actually were able to sort of pull our strengths together and sort of able to come out with a product that's even more exciting and more institutionally backed than what we were going to be able to do on our own. So some things like that are really key because they really help you to build infrastructures that then the entire industry can then play off of. So it's really important for us. You know, collaboration is quite key.
So yeah, I think this is very interesting because, again, I said something that if you're trying to knock a door and no one was willing to open the door for you, you have to find a way to still solve your problem. It's sad that we're in the part of the world where a lot is just still trying to find its footing. You know, we're still all trying to figure it out, especially in this space that we've defined as very traditional, old, and all of that, right? But I think, and we as a company, we already know that one way to scale and to be able to do more and to be able to really achieve some of the milestones we've set for ourselves is to collaborate, is to take a more strategic approach around partnership. We started out wanting to do that, but we realized that the market wasn't that how would I put it, that friendly, especially on the B2B side, where okay, let's come together and solve this problem together, right? So if you're coming into a market and you're trying to do that, but you realize that the market wasn't very receptive of the way you want to do things. I would say still, that's when we get into, we do everything by ourselves. That conversation of, in Nigeria, when you're trying to do things, there's a way the country or this space just kind of get you to do everything by yourself. So, but don't do everything by yourself for too long. Use it as a learning curve, because it actually is hard, but if that's the route you need to go in order to be able to get to the next level, take it on. It means that you have to roll your sleeves. It means you have to get your hand dirty. But one thing you're going to get out of that is an understanding that no one is going to give to you about the market. So in rolling our sleeves and getting our hands dirty, a lot of the things we have today and things we want to do today is because we have a better understanding of what the market is and a better understanding of how to position in the market. And that has helped our attraction as well. So now we know how to go about partnership in a way that the people that were seeing us as competitors before, they won't have to see us as competitors anymore, because there's just, not only are we out there more now, I mean, small now, rent small mostly, people know about the name now, and they talk about, you guys raised $3 million and all of that, right? So that, all of that in itself is good, but it's really about the understanding and the insight you have about the market, and how are you using that to position yourself where any room you get into, people want to listen to you, they want to work with you. What are you coming with that maybe 3 years ago when you went into that same room, nobody was going to listen to you, but today, there are places I go to, there are conversation, I mean, there are places I get invited to now to come and I was like, but 3 years ago I was trying to talk to you guys, but nobody was listening. But now they want to have conversation. So that's my take on partnership.
Yeah, thanks for that question. And I'll be coming from a little a different perspective. When I was building my fintech, not SalesPlat now, I literally grew the numbers from 0 to 170,000 users without a single $100 spent on digital ads. It was an informal market business, and I also had venues and locations in 16 states without having to spend a dime. And how I went about that was, I saw the partnership in another dimension. I looked at shared economy. So if, for example, I have a fintech and I'm trying to provide credit for these businesses, so I looked out for who are the people that need this credit, and they have the clusters of numbers. And we had to have conversations. So I want to give your people credit and all that. How can we go together in such a way that I can use your offices in your different states for my part office, shared office space? So I literally had about 16 offices without having to spend a dime, and that really helped us to conserve our money. So in exchange for that, we gave their people credit and so on. Coming down to the talent space in terms of I know we've given talent to about 18 industries and all that. What we're trying to take a look at now is this. Building an effective talent is expensive. Very, very expensive. Is it that somebody has spent on their failures and wins before they got to you, or somebody is spending on grooming them from scratch? So one of the ways we're taking a look at that, and we already have some companies have a buy-in now to say, you know what, let us co-build this talent. Okay, so we can create a pipeline for you with us. So if you need maybe a sales team in the next, let's say 6 months, and you know that you have some targets you're going for, you can actually start creating that pipeline from now with us, and we can start going, build them for your industry, build them for your growth and all that. And I think beyond that also, the other part of our partnership we're taking a look at is financing this talent and people, right? If you want a talent to be very happy in your company, they have needs. They have a whole lot of needs. You want them to grow your revenue, but they cannot even afford some things personally. Naturally, generally, we have a lot of underpayment in the country to an extent, except in the tech space. So we want to see a possibility of partnering with fintechs that are already, financing talent in terms of maybe loans before the salary comes and all that. So we're trying to work around having quite a number of them on the team. So yeah, partnership should just be something that is mutually beneficial, but also should be something that goes beyond just what you're seeing now into what you can actually grow together into. Yeah, thanks.
Makes sense. Tochi, you want to take a step?
I mean, I'll just say that partnerships have to do, to a large extent, with the maturity of the founders. And that comes from two perspectives. On the one hand, a founder may decide that they don't want to share their pie. They may think that to bring someone else on board would mean less, so to speak, revenue for them or profit. And so because of what I would, for the lack of a better word right now, call greed, they then will not bring someone else on board. But what that then does for them is that they may not be able to realize or achieve their objectives. Because don't forget that the reason why partnership was important in the start or at the start was because this was probably a project that was bigger than them, something they could not do by themselves. And so founders would have to be able to come to a point where they are honest with themselves, be able to see things for what they are, say, okay, this is clearly something that I cannot do by myself, and then realize that there's need to bring someone else in and do it. I mean, law firms do it all the time, where we've got a brief, and then it's probably a space that maybe we've not advised on it before in the past. So we get another law firm involved, and then both law firms do it. It's a win-win for everybody, because quite apart from the fact that you earn some money, you also gain the experience. And then the next time when you have an instruction in that regard, you're able to do it on your own. Some other times, I mean, huge clients like the CBN would lump 3 firms together anyway. They would just say, okay, this instruction, firm A, B, and C, do it together. Firm A would lead. So in our space, it's fairly different, but ultimately, even beyond when the clients impose, sometimes the founders themselves have to be able to see for themselves and say, okay, I can do this by myself. Sometimes also, just before I drop the mic, the circumstances would compel you to bring some partners on board. And I say this because recently we advised a client who wanted to launch a product, but there were some concerns around financial, I'm not finding the word now, but they didn't want to take money directly from the customers unless and until it was certain that the product had been delivered or that the service had been, this is in the PropTech space, by the way, or that the service had already been rendered. So what they did was, I mean, clearly they had to bring in trustees on board. So they partnered with a trustee firm, and then all payments are made directly into the trustee's account. And then only after the product has been confirmed delivered, the trustees then distribute the money. They take their share, they give the company its share, they pay the vendor its share. So again, sometimes circumstances will compel you to bring partners on board, and there really is just nothing anybody can do about it.
Thank you. So let's switch gears a bit, right? Let's talk about one of the arguably most important partnerships any Nigerian founder would need to make at some point, which is partnership with government, right? So, I mean, building partnerships with government institutions, regulatory agencies, and the like is something that's, well, if I say it mildly, is not very easy, right? But if you're thinking about scaling your business and you're a serious founder, it's something you have to consider. So what are ways your companies are approaching this, right? What are ways you guys are approaching relationships with government? How are you navigating the bureaucracy, the complexity of public institutions? So Tochi, let's start with you, and then we'll move it from there.
I mean, having played politics a little, right, far back in 2010, 2011, it gave me an eye into how politicians think, right, and how the government really works. And then when I also worked in an organization that also dealt with government, I knew how many back-end deals we had to do. I mean, as little as going to buy suya with the person that will make decision, right? And then agreeing, okay, what price do you want us to put, right? To be able to get a contract signed, right? And government processes are very slow. But here's my take on this. I think we focus so much on government that it limits us to see that we're actually the ones government should subject to. And this is why the topic we are discussing today is important. We are so divided that it's easy for government to pick us up, right? But it is difficult when they see you coming as a force. And that's why people that understand government, they don't go individually. They go in a cluster, right? A cluster that government, when they look at the power within that cluster, government has no reason but to say, okay, how can we work together? And I think that's what we as startup need to start thinking. How do we get so big that walking into the government will have no choice but to work with us? That's one. How do we go to the government and say, don't worry, you don't need to pay us for this. We'll give it to you, but we'll share revenue. Because the best strategy, government will always tell you they don't have money. But the truth is that they want to know the person that they can work with and still make, the individual money from, right? But if you are now going and you are showing them the value you can give them without them needing to actually lose what they will benefit, you are already in the system. From the system, you can create many other things. And that's, you could refer to people like the people doing the government collection, what's their name?
The tax
No, the people that do the central remittance. Remitter, right? Remitter was already in government, providing government contracts, right? So it was only as come, we can do this for you. And they were able to provide that extra. And Remitter is also doing more for government now because they are already in government. So it's to find that particular little niche that you can go not just as a weakling going to beg, but with strength to say, come, forget about all this, we can handle it for you, and we'll just share revenue. You make more money. Government want to see where they make more money so that they can, of course, right? So I think the first thing we should actually be thinking about is how can we build a strong community in such a way that when we go as a community to government, we'll be able to show them the value, we'll be able to show them where they make more money, and then we'll also be able to let them know that we are here to enable them and not to actually take from them.
May I go next?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. I mean, there might be a way out already. Unfortunately, we may not have started seeing the results yet. So about 4 months ago, the Nigerian Startup Act was passed. One of the innovations under the Act was the establishment of a council called the National Council for Digital Innovation and Entrepreneurship. Where I'm going with that is this. I'm going somewhere with it. Now, apart from the core people, the president, the vice president, all of those people, the minister, there's room for 4 individuals from the startup community to also be on the council. So I'm thinking to myself, and that's why I said it flows from what you said. So if the startup community, for instance, can come together and then the people going to that council, sort of are appointed. I don't know how that would work, how that may happen, but imagine that the people going to that council recognize that they are acting for an entire community. They have a voice in that council. The president most likely doesn't know jack about startups or about fintech or about anything. Ultimately, and at the end of the day, what would happen is that the president or the people who would ultimately make the decisions would listen to counsel from the startup representatives. And so there might be a way out, but again, because the act was passed merely 4 months ago, I doubt that council has already been instituted. But let's see, it remains to be seen really the next few months. They may come together, form a council, work together with the needs. You're so skeptical.
Yeah, I mean, there'll always be skepticism, right?
Yeah.
But I think the point is well taken, right? We need to organize ourselves in the industry, especially given the fact that this is a young industry, like we're operating in a very young sector. And the sooner we can come together as a unit, right, the stronger we can have a voice. Well said. So I think I also want to just get the perspective of anyone on the panel who has successfully sort of like partnered with government so far, right, on their projects, and how you've been able to sort of navigate the space. Anyone on the panel? Maybe we'll start with Victor.
So I would say that there's a difference between partnering with the government and eventually even executing what you partnered on. Right. I have been in several offices to the level of the vice president, ministers in the country at several levels, and you have conversations. We need to face the fact that partnering with government is not the same thing as B2B sales. It's not the same thing as B2C. The government is one of the hardest to sell to or to partner with in any industry at all. And that is because there are lots of unspoken interest, right? So, but what I would say is, based on my experience, I remembered walking into the office of a minister and I'm like, this is what we do. My name is this and this and this, and very wonderful conversations and all that. And after 1.5 hours and everything, it's more like, you guys are sound. We love you. But we already have a vendor, you know. And at the end of the day, it's not like maybe there is, in quotes, a vendor. But the vendor is just part of the system, like he said. So what I do advise is this. You don't have to start partnership with the government from the high places. No. It can be from a local government level. It can be from a state level. Now, the fact that you're able to succeed at a state level, you can leverage that to get 2 or 3 more states. Then when you have that kind of success, they will be the one to now say, okay, if you want to take this to this level, how do we go about it? That is one way. There are some organizations in Nigeria that they literally have a role called maybe government partnerships officer or something like that. They dedicate 1 person or 2 or 3. An example of that is Galaxy Backbone. Even though they are a government stroke, you know, this PPP and all that, they have about 2 or 3 persons that are literally just sitting on the neck of government. So as startups, maybe in the prop tech space, if we're taking a look at partnership with government, which is very essential really, the first would be to say that we are dedicating some people for that. You cannot say it's your head of sales or your head of growth or something like that that is actually trying to steal, because you can have a conversation today with a minister and they tell you to come back in 2 weeks and you are lodging in a hotel for 2 weeks in Abuja, and after that 2 weeks they say it's not on seat, and you have to really dedicate resources to really getting partnership with the government done. And that is why organizations use consultants more, you know, in that space. That's from our own experience. The last thing I'll say about that would be that don't go with the mindset of begging for it, like he said. Go with something tangible. So I won't advise anybody that is still at the low traction level to honestly want to go to the government. You'll be wasting your time. But when you are going with the fact that we've already done this for about 50,000 people, about this and that, the numbers make them feel, you know, like we need these people. Partnership with the government is easier when they feel they need you than when you feel that they need them. So that would be my contribution.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you very much for sharing. Just curious to know, what do you guys think about the level of regulation in the space currently, right? And after this, we'll move on to technology, because there's, you know, quite a bit to be said there as well, and we're running out of time. But what's your take on the level of regulation in the country, and especially in the startup space? If you had to choose, would you make a case for more regulation, right, to improve standards, quality, or would you make a case for less regulation to sort of like avoid like stifling innovation? If I could just get like maybe 2 or 3 viewpoints on this, and then we can move on.
Hello? Okay. So for me, I believe where there is no rule, there is no sin. and which is what is destroying our economy today. Anybody can wake up today and say he has an idea. And because there's no system guiding any idea, the person can do anything to get the result he wants. And that's going to be chaos at the end of the day, right? So I always look for how to create systems that are plug and plays, which also involves regulation. Where there's regulation, it's very easy for any business to actually just plug and play, right? But where there are no regulations, you have to start looking at your neighbor, looking everywhere, and then you just think of something. And that thing can be something that will cause catastrophe across all the other people in the industry. But for you, you are benefiting from it, right? So regulations, there are things that we can't say no to, but I would prefer if we are the ones controlling that regulation. Meaning, first of all, we have to regulate ourselves, right? And then introduce that regulation to the government so that we actually be the one controlling what that regulation is. The bill he's talking about, I mean, if you read it, you will pray that that bill doesn't actually implement. Because it was not done by the community that needs it. It was done just by some people that saw a whole lot of startups raising money and they wanted to quickly cash on it. And then they decided to create a bill just so that they can go to Rent Small and say, you have to pay this, you have to pay this. And that's what happened. So we have to move fast. And in moving fast, meaning we have to start sitting, having a round table where we, first of all, come up with a regulation that guides us and then introduce it to the government so they are not the one giving us how we run our business.
Awesome. Anyone else want to comment on this before we move forward? Okay. Victor.
All right, thanks for that. The question about regulation is quite a number of times dicey. I have operated in a number of industries, fintech for one, a little bit of cryptocurrency, stroke blockchain. So I understand recently FTX just went down, and that is something that regulation could honestly have helped in some way. I also understand the fact that where there is no law, there is no sin. And to just quickly touch on something he said, the Nigerian Startup Bill was honestly not done by just the government. I happen to be on the, so right now, because many times we don't really know how these things are done, I happen to be a part of the Financial Inclusion Working Group with the CBN, right, as a voluntary person on the Special Intervention Working Group. If a policy comes out tomorrow for youth and innovation and women, I am part of that. But it doesn't have to be announced. So a lot of people are part of that, and nobody even knows. I don't put it on my LinkedIn or something like that. Nobody gets to know. When it comes to the startup bill, the person championing it himself, I know him, and I know a lot of my friends, in quote, you know, contributed one way or the other. In fact, when the first draft of the startup bill came, it was sent across as normal Word document, and people were able to like send their, you know, concerns and all that. Maybe it is not so broadcasted enough, and we can't blame that. It should maybe work off National Orientation Agency or whatever to talk about what is going on. But I feel that that is actually one of the best things that has happened, so to say. It may not be perfect because all laws are exclusive. It will help somebody most of the time. It will still affect some other people. But generally, do I want there to be regulations? They are very essential. Regulations they are very essential because when we don't have them, people get to do whatever they want, right? However, regulation should not stifle innovation. So that is where the balance has to be drawn. Can we happen to build the regulations alongside the foray or the understanding of these innovations itself, which is where contributory capacities have to come in. If you are building regulation for, let's say, the property tech space, don't just bring in someone because he has been the head of maybe ministry of this and this and that. That person is about 60 years old. He literally may never understand what is going on in the digital space right now. So you want to bring people like maybe Tunde and a few other ones that maybe in quotes, you won't have called them if it was about 10, 20 years ago. But they are the future. So the goal will be that regulation must be developed alongside innovation so that that balance can be there. And lastly, if there are going to be regulations, they did this for the fintech space. They did something called sandbox. So if you're going to regulate this industry, then create a sandbox where people can come and test their ideas and fail, or at the same time, rise from there. That sandbox does not let them, first of all, have to go through the troubles of getting regulated, but they're able to do it under the auspices and watch of some industry leaders that are also, well knowledgeable and able to grow from there. That's where regulation and innovation gets to grow together. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
If I may
Okay,
just
so
add-
we just have 5 minutes, right? So I know it's been a very engaging conversation. But I want to touch briefly on technology, right? In the interest of time, there are some founders in this room who are just starting out. And if they were like me, I did not come from a tech background, right? I had no tech experience getting into this space. I don't know if any of you maybe had similar journeys, whereby just in the process of building your solution, you discover that obviously you need technology as a catalyst to move things along. What did that journey look like from you crossing that hurdle into embracing technology? What were some of the challenges you saw? And how have you now been able to use it within your businesses? So maybe we'll just end with that question. So Tunde, if you can give us your take on that, and then we can get other views as well.
Congratulations, by the way, for getting into Techstars.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, we paved the way, but I'm happy to see like
My fellow
other
brother.
companies getting into Techstars. So, yeah, the thing around like technology, the role of technology, and being able to know how it's been said over and over again that technology is an enabler, right? Never, like, whatever problem you're trying to solve, never see the technology as the end. Just see it as the means to an end, right? And when that is the view you have, then it doesn't really matter whether you are a tech founder or non-tech, a founder with a tech background or a founder without a tech background. Because at the end of the day, it's all about there's this problem. Where do I really want to take the solution to? And how far do I want to go with the solution? And one thing that I've realized, because I'm not a technical founder as well, right? But I've played around technology a bit. I remember before, one of the startups that I've kind of worked on, I remember those days with WordPress. I would outsource what I was building to some engineers, and they were taking time to get it delivered, and then I'll jump at the back end myself and just kind of look what that looks like, and then I'll kind of walk around codes a bit, even though it's not very technical. This is WordPress, is not too technical, right? But what I'm saying is that along the journey, two things would happen, right? As long as you have the end in view, which is, I want to solve this problem. This is what I need. You might not even know everything you need to solve that problem, but as you continue in that journey, as you give yourself to that journey, you are not only going to see that, you need this to be able to get to that end, but you're also asking, who do I need to bring in to be able to get to that end? So for me, I was able, for us at Small, I was able to bring in a co-founder who is now our CTO, has about 10 years experience building products and all of that, right? So he joined, and it's still one of the best decisions we've made as a company today. Just having that person that, is much older than me, not much older, some years older than me, but at the same time, he brings so much experience to the table around just the technology and all of that, right? And also, as we all journey together, we are seeing, okay, this is how we want to solve the problem better, and this is the role technology we play in solving the problem. So it's not everything, you can't figure it out today, is as you journey. But don't see technology as the end, see it as the means to the end. Once you replace or switch, then that's where the problem is, where you are so focused on, I need to build this technology, but you've lost sight of the problem you are trying to solve.
Awesome. Maybe we could take just one more comment before we close, if anybody would also want to talk on that.
For me, I think understanding the problem you want to solve helps you know when technology should come in. When I wanted to start, my brother, who basically at that time was building Konga, he was the Konga development manager, told me, Tochi, you can do this on Excel now. And then I sat down, I said, that makes sense, but after analyzing the real problem I really wanted to solve, I said, Excel cannot work for this. right? Because I'm trying to do something real time. And if I don't apply technology from the foundation, it will be difficult by the time I scale. So I'll have to find a way to solve it. So a whole lot of people go into solving problems without properly sitting down to understand it, look at the future, look at the present, and then come up with a decision on the best simple tool to use. So I think understanding the problem properly can basically help you understand the best time to apply technology.
Well said. Thank you very much. So it's been a pleasure speaking with all of you today. Thank you for making the time. If we can please put our hands together for our panelists.
Thank you very much. Yes, please, you'd have a group photograph before you exit the stage. But please, let's celebrate them. I know the room is almost empty, but I think that was interesting. They have definitely highlighted the importance of strategic partnership if you want to accelerate growth in any sector generally. But of course, we're talking about the prop tech space and the real estate sector. So thank you very much for doing a great job. That was very interesting and, of course, insightful.